right, everybody. On today's episode, I have Vlad Mkrtumyan, and as you know, on the show, on today's Business Leaders, we talk to different business owners around the country, around the world, and just they share their advice and input. This show is for experienced business people that are looking to scale up. It's for folks that are, in startup mode or haven't even started their idea, or it's for, busy managers or project managers, folks that are looking for strategies or angles or ways to improve. And as everybody knows at this point, you watched a few episodes on the show, it's pretty unscripted and informal. We just have a conversation. And Vlad and I connected on Facebook a while back and then started chatting just recently. And so he's going to tell us about his company, what he does, and then I'll ask him some random questions and we'll see what kind of random answers we get.
Nice. Yeah, I like it. I love it. So basically I run a digital agency right now. It's called Logic Inbound. The primary focus is SEO, and that's our primary focus, although we have done other things before. Basically at 19, I got started in the tech industry. I started doing the startup game there, and just kind of my story is I failed my way forward. So basically, and I failed my way over here, as Gabe, you have obviously as well. With your 40 employees you used to have. So
that's right.
But today, we're a digital agency and we do SEO. So, you can, tackle that. You can talk about the story either way. This is my third venture on paper. And on paper, I mean, I actually got this company incorporated. In the past, I would still test out ideas, but you don't always need to incorporate for something that's going to fail. So
yeah, I would agree. And I'll be 35 in like a month or so here. How old are you, bud?
26.
Yeah, so you're a baby. You got plenty of time to learn.
Yeah, I feel like an old man, but yeah.
So how did you get into SEO and like the online world and all this technical stuff? How did that start for you?
Sure. How does the journey start? So, everybody needs money. So me and my cousin, we used to go to garage sales. This is one of for anyone out there right now, and they just need money, and they're hustlers. They got the entrepreneurial spirit. Gabe, you know what I'm talking about. You'll go to a garage sale, you'll take something and you'll flip it. I feel like every entrepreneur at one point has flipped something.
Yeah.
So my first flips, we went to garage sales. We'd buy books and then we'd sell them on Amazon.com, which you can still do today. And my cousin, he's really smart. I would say he's a technical mastermind. And he actually built his middle school's website. And so I was like, okay, you've definitely got the technical abilities there. And so I said, here's a challenge for you. Why don't we build an app that lets us scan a book on a garage sale and see if we can actually sell it for profit on Amazon. So that's all we would do. And that's kind of how it started. And then after that, we were young. I was like 18 at the time. He was like 16. And everybody was talking about like Chuck Norris jokes and Chuck Norris facts. So I was like, where's Bruce Lee? I can't believe he's not on the Android App Store. This is the future. This is like 07, 08. And everybody there was like, nah, this whole iPhone thing, whatever. Why do I need that? I got my BlackBerry,
Yeah.
So basically, yeah. So we created Bruce Lee quotes. That got 1,000 downloads in 2 weeks. And then after that, he was like, what do we do now? I'm like, well, we can still keep going to the garage sales and still flip books. Like I remember I bought one for like 50 cents, sold it for like $200. There's some insanely good deals. Yeah, that was one of the rarities though. So did that. And then, we kept doing these apps. I said, we've got this code for this app and it's just got Bruce Lee's face and, some of his quotes. Why don't we just do everybody? Why don't we do Shakespeare, Eminem, Mike Tyson? And it was really, we just used the Google trending. So we looked at like who gets searched the most, which celebrity. We just put their name on, and then the takedown notices they came. But but some of them is just public rights, right? There's fan sites, and these are kind of fan apps. So before you know, we 30 apps later, 300,000 downloads, and that was kind of my first venture into it. Yeah.
Wow. Did you guys monetize it all, or you just like?
Yeah, we did. Right. You think you get paid a lot, but we made like a couple $1,000s, which isn't bad when you're 19 and you're in college. And I would say the best thing that taught me is like, this is what I'm going to focus on. When you're 19, so at 19, I went to college and everyone around me, they were wondering what they were going to do. And I was sitting on AdMob and I was looking at my app downloads. So I was like, okay, I found my calling. Yeah.
That's very cool. Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
What about you, Gabe?
Yeah.
What's your early story?
I built and sold my first website when I was 16 for $3,000, and I was like,
That's
I should stick with this, man.
yeah,
But that was a lot
yeah,
of
that's
money.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's where I started out, and same thing. Like from that point forward, I've done some other things, but I never really strayed that far from like web and tech and like marketing and stuff like that. So
But then you got into real estate, right? In the real estate
yeah,
field.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was flipping houses for like 3 years and got pretty good at it. And what I learned is I didn't make any money in 3 years, but I didn't lose that much. Everybody else made money. But I learned that like it's really difficult to do with hard money, but if you have your own money, it's a lucrative business.
Nice.
So I basically just tabled it for like 10 years and probably mid 40s. I'll have enough cash to do it again, and then I will.
Nice. Interesting. Yeah, I've got some connections there. I can
Yeah.
hook you up.
Because yeah, it was, I mean, everything ran perfect. Everything went great. But the thing in real estate is it's very difficult to control the time on market. No matter what kind of real estate market's going on, it's difficult to control that. And if it's your own money, who cares? Maybe you're only paying yourself 5 or 6 or 10%, at the end of the day when you cash out or however you want to settle for your own debt against yourself. But when you got a hard money lender and you're paying 15%, much more expensive.
Yeah,
So
I hear you. So my second successful company, because we failed, was also actually in real estate.
Oh yeah.
I did a real estate CRM for real estate agent recruiters.
Nice.
So basically, every brokerage needs agents. So yeah, I went in and worked with 13 brokerages in 3 states, and that was my second kind of profitable failure. And that one, made like 10K a month or something like that.
That's not bad.
It's pretty good. That's where it capped out at, but it was a lot of work. Made quite a few mistakes there as well. But the reason it was a CRM is because the apps didn't make me enough money. I was like, hey, the B2C game, forget that. B2B is where it's at.
It is. It's way harder, but it's way more profitable.
Yeah. I would say I like B2B more because as a service, I've actually also we're getting into e-commerce now as a marketing agency. We're trying to use our own skills and abilities, which I think is a testament, if you're successful with that. So
definitely. Yeah. I have never done a B2C product until a month ago. I just bought an e-commerce business off of a past client, and it's my first B2C. It's my first physical product. And we launched it last week and made $500 our first day. So I was pretty happy.
You're killing
it. If I can maintain that, but
if someone didn't know you, they think you were just all up, nonstop. That's awesome.
But yeah, it's crazy the difference between consumer markets and business markets. Totally different. It's just night and day for me anyway.
Yeah. It is. No, it is definitely very different. And I think it pays dividends to know both sides as well.
Yeah. And I built enough consumer facing sites that I would think I would know how to do that. But this one I'm actually into for the first time. It's a different world. So,
but you're quite technical then, right? Because at 16, building your own website, you've probably got some technical skills right there.
Yeah. Right? I barely finished high school, and I was homeschooled. So that tells you how academic I was.
Congratulations. You saved yourself a lot.
I did.
Yeah.
But I've taught myself everything from there on out. And I'm pretty techie. I wouldn't call myself a real developer, but I could read whatever code you put in front of me and tell you what's going on at least. I couldn't write it, but I could read it. And then I can hack I have a business I started in 2011 that's super profitable, and I barely do anything with it. And I built that in like 2 days. Just website and like the whole 9 yards, and build out an ad server and everything. It's a local marketing company.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, if I'm motivated, I can figure out a way to glue stuff together, and it looks good enough for people to buy it. So
that's interesting. I think that's what you need at minimum.
Yeah.
That skill set gluing stuff together. And
Mm-hmm.
me, I'm actually not technical. I'm not. So I put the teams together. I think that's what kind of makes me a bit different. I don't. I'm not as like I've built a website before actually for one client. I charged like $700. But my cousin, he had so much strength in the beginning that I
Mm-hmm.
realized like, hey, if I just find people like this, which are obviously not common,
Yeah.
but then I put the team together, and that's kind of actually what I focus on as much as I can is connecting with people and finding
Mm-hmm.
out, how to help them out, whether it's just connect them to somebody else or whatever. I know a bunch of I run an entrepreneurial group as well. We just had 3,000 members on Meetup, and we do events every month, and
Nice.
that's where I thought like, hey, I could invite other people to be on your show or whatever
I love
business.
it. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I'm a little envious. I have to say that technical skill set. I would recommend. I think anybody should learn it early on. I think it pays a lot later.
It's
Yeah.
good to know. It like you probably. That's interesting. I wouldn't think you weren't technical based on what you said so far, but on your side, you're probably like, man, it would be so cool to know enough about this stuff to like figure it out. But then the downside of it is like, I know enough to figure stuff out. And so I get heads down into things that I probably shouldn't be working on at this
Oh,
stage.
interesting.
It's good and bad. It's like, I like it, but I also like if some kid if you would have come to me at 18 and said, should I learn coding or should I learn like how to run a business? I would never tell you to learn coding.
Really?
Never.
That's so interesting. So we give the kid opposite advice.
Because I think not that there's anything wrong with it, but
Sure, yeah.
it's like I don't know how to say this in a non offensive way, but like I don't think it's a good idea for people to like focus solely on technical skills because it's like being a bricklayer. My grandfather was a bricklayer, but then my grandfather graduated to being a business owner with like 75 employees, and that's when he really hit his potential. So I guess maybe if I'm just talking out loud thinking about it, if you're entrepreneurial, there's no point in learning technical skills.
Interesting.
If you're, and not everybody should be entrepreneurial. It's a crazy ride and you're insane if you're an entrepreneur. But if you're not entrepreneurial and you just want to be like a support role or be a part of a team, then technical skills are highly valuable.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do any of what I do without my team. I have fantastic people on my team.
For sure. Yeah. Without me, yeah,
So.
for sure. Well, without them actually. So without me, they'd be great. That's interesting. So my advice to the kid or whoever would be, right. It's not necessarily, if you're learning how to code, it's not like learning construction. Like this field's always going to be relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're starting from scratch and you've got $0, right, then you can go get a job as a programmer, make all the right connections. And whenever you see a CEO, or whoever, trying to get a project, that CTO is much harder to find. So if you've got that skill set, I think if you're at an advantage in the negotiation table. I feel it's interesting how we're pitching the opposite, and we got the opposite skill sets.
Yeah. No, I would agree that like having the CTO skills and like ability is highly valuable because I've been contracted in as a CTO multiple times, and I really enjoy that. And could I write 2 lines of code that it would actually work together? Probably not, but I could tell you what, like I could look at the code and I can build. I actually write all the technical scopes for our company.
Interesting.
Because if you can write use cases, then you can be a CTO.
Yeah, I would say, that's true, actually.
In some sense.
I remember actually one of my friends was like, I got a CTO on board and now we're looking for a programmer and we're losing a bunch of money. I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, my CTO can't code. I was like, okay, there's something. I think early on, you've got to, but you early on though, you learned how to code and did all that, right? I actually did build a website before for a guy, and like I said, I charged him $700, and I used Twitter Bootstrap and put together HTML. So I could do like basic HTML, but that's not the real, that's not, any back end API. I could do FizzBuzz, Yeah.
That's cool. That's interesting. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it will always be relevant. I think it's just there's a balance as far as like how much a leader in a company needs to know from a technical standpoint compared to like I think your skill set is more valuable for building companies than mine.
I hope so. I hope you're right.
Because I think connecting people and like bringing things together, as long as the only amount of technical skill or knowledge that you need to be a leader, I think in today's world is to be able to validate progress. And you can validate progress by making your team demo work to you every 2 weeks. And if
Mm-hmm.
there's no functionality, then in the way we operate now, and this is probably harsh sounding, but nobody gets paid unless it works.
Yeah. I mean, I have two horror stories from two friends who both paid 60 plus K on apps, and the developers just took the money and just, you know,
Yep.
made off, literally no
Yep.
project finished or anything. So,
So yeah, no, everything's like milestone based now, and if things are functional and I approve them, then I pay for that sprint, and if they're not, then they keep working on it until it works, and then I pay for the sprint like I agreed. Which is, I wish it was different, but in the technical world, you can't see everything, and so it's too hard to. I can read code, but I don't have the time or interest or probably the full ability to be able to go and be like, oh, Vlad's writing this the right way and everything's good, and even though it's taking a long time. So I've just moved to complete 100% performance based with all of my developers, except for one guy who I've known for 5 years and like delivers stuff in a fraction of the time that should take. So I'd pay him by the hour because I completely trust him, but we've worked together for years. So
yeah, interesting. That's interesting. That's cool. So going into a field like real estate or whatever field, because I would tell people that they should learn how to code if they're looking to get involved in the tech industry. And you don't have to be, the CTO of the company, but I would say, at least being able to put together a project scope is very useful. Yeah. So what would you tell people is necessary? Let's say you wanted to start, I don't know, like a bar or like a salon or whatever. Do you think that some experience is useful there, or do you disagree?
yeah, I think experience is probably useful there. If you want to start a business in an industry that you don't understand, you should watch every episode of The Profit with Marcus Lemonis.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because you do need experience in, well, you need to be able to use your superpower in the business.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't know what your superpower is, then you're probably not mature enough to start a business.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And so you should go back and work for somebody else. Like I'm coming up on 20 years as an entrepreneur. Half of my entrepreneurial career was me being paid to learn on projects or screwing things up, or, I had a couple jobs, like regular jobs, 2 or 3 regular jobs in the first 10 years, amidst like running my own companies. But ideally you should either get a job to get experience, or at the point that you feel like you have enough experience, there's one thing that stands out that you're really good at, and whether or not you can identify that or not, it might be worth talking to your family or friends or other people you've worked with or for in the past, and be like, what's the one thing that I'm really good at?
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else can usually see it.
Yeah.
I could sell my way out of a paper bag. It's like I could sell anything to anybody. You give me 30 seconds before the next meeting you have, and I'll help you close whatever you're selling.
Interesting.
So my superpower is definitely sales, which frustrates the hell out of me because it's very difficult to build a team to the level that I think they should be at on the sales front. Because they don't perform like me, and I don't know how to train that yet, which is frustrating to me.
I think that's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I think it is a bit of, nature versus nurture, right? Yeah. So you can only, not everyone's going to step on the court and just be LeBron James, right?
Nobody is. I mean, I put hours and hours of time in it, but there are certain things that people are just better at. And like, obviously LeBron has a little more talent than me.
Yeah. I mean, it's, exactly. But it's,
but he worked for it for sure.
Exactly. It's a mix. It's a mix of both. Right. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would say my skill set is definitely connecting people. And I always told myself like, hey, if I start a business, then I can just pick the people I like, and I can work with the people I like, and then that'll be great for me.
Yeah.
But
have you read Good to Great by Jim Collins?
I've heard of the book. Tell me more.
You should read it. One of his big takeaways from the book is, most of being successful in business is getting the right people on the bus and the wrong people off.
Yeah. No, definitely.
And he has some other great stuff in there. I definitely recommend reading it, but that's what that reminded me of. And that's a huge part of it. Over the last 3 years, I have focused as much on recruiting the right people on is huge, but I focus probably as much energy on getting people out or moving them into the right role. If there's a attitude or character problem, then the goal is to push them out, or, I fire them or they quit because they can't measure up. If the attitude and character is right, then it's a matter of figuring out, I hired you, Vlad, to do, this role, and it just doesn't work for you, but I know that you're a good person and a good fit for our team culture, so I'm going to move you to, managing the SEO team or whatever it would be.
Interesting.
And that's the work of building the business, after you're past the bootstrap of stage of getting some cash and then figuring it out. So
I'm learning that. So we got some employees, and I hired one, didn't fit. I have made a whole bunch of dumb mistakes before. we hired on the person, but he didn't have any experience with this content position. We were looking for a content writer, but the thing, what's funny is one of my business partners never had any experience with the content writing either, right? So this happened a while back, and we ended up trying to move this guy around, and did not find the right fit, so we had to let him go, actually.
Yeah,
but
that'll happen too, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting. So that sales skill, did you think, did you always knew you had that, or when did it kind of dawn upon you?
I didn't realize that it was my superpower, honestly, until relatively recently, maybe in the last 5 or 6 years. But when I look back, I was selling things when I was 10 years old. So, and my grandfather could sell anything to anybody. He was 1,000 times the salesperson I am, and I hung out with him most of my childhood. He basically raised me, and so it's easy. I guess it's easy to model what you see for 10 years at a time.
Yeah, that's great.
So I'm sure that helped me. But then I realized more and more that it's definitely a strength that I have, more so than other people, I think, only because this past year I spent $25,000 on, somebody that had a great attitude and I thought had all the chops, and just didn't work out. Plus two or three other people, which I don't even know the number yet, what I put into them. And so the more that I've invested in trying to build a program, my entire company runs on processes and programs and step-by-step guides. And so I built that for sales, and it didn't work. And I'm I know how to build processes, so it's not that. So end of the day, I realized that there's just very few people that are motivated in the right way, or hungry enough, or have the creative ability to shift things and close. So I don't know. And the tenacity for it, because sales is hands down the most emotional job. I think.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I used to do 50 cold calls a day, and it was just draining, it's just draining. And I don't know if there's a mindset you can inherit where it's not draining and you get more energized, but cold calls, and you're cold calling real estate agents. I remember one time the managing broker, he's like, all right, I'm going to put you on speaker in front of all my agents. Keep going. I'm listening. I was like, oh, geez. I was like, let's go. Bring it on. But I think it's, and I don't know how, but it's very underrated. Sales is very underrated in business. And I don't know how. I don't know why, especially in tech. People think if you build it, they will come somehow, and you learn that very early on when you fall flat on your face a couple times.
Yeah.
And I would say myself, sales, I would say, is not my thing. I don't know how to be, and maybe it's the way I'm picturing sales, I did just close, a pretty big deal, but, in my head, I imagine the sales guy, like Mr. Smooth, coming in, got all the right things to say, and maybe that's not it.
I don't think that's it.
Yeah, I don't think that's it either. But connecting people for me, that's the way I look at it. And
Mm-hmm.
how can I connect this person to add value? And
Mm-hmm.
if I just keep, I don't know if it's an entrepreneur. I mean, people are calling me an entrepreneur a lot, but now more recently, and I actually enjoy this a lot more. People are calling me a connector, and I enjoy that more. And the way I look at it is, how can I connect this person to the right person to add value, or a
Right.
solution of a person or from a service or product they provide. You know,
Let's dive into the big deal a little bit more, if you don't mind.
sure, whatever.
Tell me about what it is, how it happened, and walk me through kind of briefly um, how you how you made the first connection, kind of all the way to how you closed the deal, because it's a pretty big deal.
Sure, yeah, sure. So, yeah, this is kind of my first six-figure deal. I'm closing in, and the way it happened is through my connections. I have an event I throw every month. I actually throw 4 different events every month, and through one of them, one of the one of the people that also works out of the same area that I do, she
Mm-hmm.
heard of me. She contacted me, and I basically, got in contact with her. And check this out, right? I get a lot of emails sometimes, and I don't get back to them fast enough. This email actually, I didn't get back to until like 2 weeks or something, 3 weeks. But she was still nice to me just because of these events and the connections and the reputation I had in the community, which I think
Nice.
is awesome.
Saved you from not responding fast
It
enough
did.
unless
I
somebody else was
apologize,
focused.
and I'm taking her out to eat too, actually now.
Good.
So she introduced me to a guy who runs an agency, and his startup is doing amazing, and he needs to give all of his clients to somebody, and that person's me, right? So then basically, I got a referral, and based on that referral, I said, let's do it. I've closed deals, 50K plus deals before, right? So it only makes sense to do 6 figures, and then maybe next year, knock on wood, we'll close some 7-figure
That's
website
great.
deals. You know,
Nice.
so I think it's a process. Where would you like me to kind of go into?
Yeah,
Or yeah.
so it makes sense as far as you got like a referral, which was because of the fact that you constantly build your social network, which is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Like your real social network, like people you see face to face, not just. I mean, digital is huge, and I do a tons for digital, but you actually do these face to face events too. So that's where you got the referral. Writing up a proposal in some senses is not that difficult. I think that's something I can teach anybody to do.
Very
You
easy.
could
Yeah.
hire me or you to write a proposal
Very
for
easy.
you.
Yeah.
That's not a big deal. How did you present and close, a 6-figure deal? Because that's different than me calling up and say, hey, you want to buy a $500 website?
Yeah. And it took a couple of meetings. So obviously, the bigger the deal, the longer it takes to close. So this one took about, I would say, a month,
Okay.
a month and a half, which is actually pretty fast for this size deal. We probably met about 4 or 5 times. And basically, we met up at the office. The guy who referred the deal was referring the deal to me, and made the introduction to me. He basically, he was there. He vouched for us, and we just really got along with the client. We brought a developer on board onto the site. Um, you know, and the team that I'm working with, very sharp, and they answered all the questions, and I could tell right away that we were in a really good position. It just, things just clicked. I don't know if you ever had that where,
Yeah.
you meet with, like, sometimes like one of my last meetings, I was talking to a guy and I was like, hey, how are you doing today? And he was like, okay. And I was like, okay, this is going to be one of those conversations.
Right.
So yeah, we could feel that, the types of questions we were asking about how are we going to get this project done? What's the back end API? And from the first phone call, I said, my company, we do SEO, we can do web design as well. And she said, you guys are perfect. You're the perfect fit. This is just what we're looking for.
Nice.
So just really started on a good, it was a good first impression,
Yeah.
So,
That's
yeah.
awesome. And is it officially closed?
Yeah, we're started.
Cool. So then I think what you said is right. I mean, some things just click, and when you're asking the right questions, it actually proves kind of your competence for the project, which is a good point. what was the last mile of the last 5 minutes or whatever happened? How did you get the signature and close?
But yeah. So the last mile of the last 5 minutes is basically it was actually the most quiet time. Where we were looking through the contract together. And she was like, "What's your rate?" I said my rate, and then she, then basically I was quiet. She didn't even blink. She was like, "Okay, perfect." These are they're like a big national company. And then I was thinking in my head, like, man, we could have probably,
priced it higher.
Yeah, like I could have just gotten away with murder with the way that you quickly just said yes. But of course we wouldn't do that. We got to stay true. And so basically, yeah, we went through and we were really quiet. And basically, she was just waiting for us to, look at the proposal they put together, and start the project, etc. We already had all the kind of preliminary discussions on how we would work, how we would do our reporting on a project this size, which is probably going to maybe take about 4-5 months to complete. Basically, you got to answer all those questions. And so the last 5 minutes were, I would say it was probably the worst meeting because it was the least amount of talking and just quiet. And, she was like, "Let's see here." And we were just sitting there in the background quiet, just like, I was thinking in my head, like, what am I watching right now? Getting put together, so.
Yeah. Sometimes that's actually a pretty good close sometimes, to put it all out there and be like, give all the details and then just sit there and listen. Because if you're nervous or you lack confidence and you display the lack of confidence, everybody lacks confidence sometimes, but
for sure.
And you interrupt, then you can actually screw up the deal.
And I think you can attest to this as well. You don't want to talk yourself out of a deal.
Yes.
And when you're doing sales or just communicating, I think just that silence, you've got to know how to use it in sales and when to use it.
For sure.
Maybe you could talk about that as well. I don't know what your background is on that.
It varies deal to deal. And your ability to intuitively know what's going on in the space on the phone call or in the room. I do 99% of my, sales over the phone. So it's slightly different, but your ability to understand where people's heads are at and then push or just say, "So what do you think?" And then just hold,
Yeah.
There's so many different ways to close, but sometimes it's just sitting there and letting people make up their own mind. If you jump in and try to sell more, you can actually distract them from the path that you walk them all the way down to the signature line. And, so that's it. That's what I've been learning about sales. It's different in every situation. And I lost a little deal. I didn't lose it, but it got delayed 3 weeks from some stupid mistake I made the other day. And it was only a $3,000 deal, but, I should have, the guy was ready to go and he's like, "Oh, but my partner has the card that we're going to put this on." I should have said, "Oh, no problem. Let's just call him up and three-way him in and we'll do it right now." And I've known this guy for a long time. So I slipped up because that's normally what I would have done. I would have been like, "Oh, Vlad's, we're talking about closing and, you said somebody else has the card that's funding this, so just call him up. We'll close him up." It would have been a done deal. But instead I was like, he's like, "Oh, I'll just get it to you tomorrow." I'm like, "All right, cool." And then, and then something came up and I got put lower on the priority list and now it's not going to close for another 2 or 3 weeks.
That happens. There's a bunch of little tricks, right?
So your ability to be creative in the moment and figure out what the real objection is or what the right next step is, or if you're just supposed to be patient and keep pushing the deal, it's an art. It's that's what you learn through experience. I wish there was a training program for it, but I don't know if there is.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if there is really a training program, it's trial by fire, and I would say, being creative, is so useful and it's very useful. It sounds like you bootstrapped. Am I correct? Well, it's
everything.
I think I don't know if you can tell. I have too.
Yeah.
And, I think it teaches you how to, do a lot more with less. And, being creative as a company, bartering, for different services, et cetera, pays dividends. So,
well, that's very cool. Congratulations on the big deal.
Thanks.
It sounds like you've got got a lot going on from in the, entrepreneurial space. And, one thing we'll kind of probably wrap up with this question, but I am super, super introverted by nature.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Which nobody knows that because I do stuff like this all the time, and I do Facebook Lives, and I'm very intentionally outgoing. But for me, I would be totally petrified to throw an event. Like,
oh, wow.
I've done it, but I usually have my partner Rachel help me, and like I figure out ways around it, but that's super, super difficult for me. But if I could walk into a 20 person boardroom and pitch all you and close you, I don't care about that because I'm like on point and doing my thing.
Nice.
So what would be your advice to me or anybody that's like knows they need to build a network like you do, would love to have events, like needs to build their social abilities, but just is petrified of it?
Sure. I would say, first of all, don't be petrified. It's hard to resonate with something that's not your natural fear, me being transparent. But I've had things such as a fear of speaking in front of people, being on stage. And I still get butterflies right before I'm going to, jump up on stage in front of 60 people, 100 people, whatever, right? But just by sheer repetition, you remind yourself, you're like, oh yeah, I felt this feeling before, I've had these nerves before, gotten over them. And I would say definitely with, I don't know if it's like that for cold calling. I've done a lot of cold calling. Never got over that feeling, but with throwing events and speaking in front of people, you definitely with time, you just get better. So you can start small, with anything, start small. So maybe just go to a networking event with a group of friends and make it your goal to talk to one person or two people, and then after that, that's what happened to me. I went to a networking event. I was, around 19 to 20. That's when I went to my first networking events. And, I was the awkward guy in the room that was looking at his cell phone, pretending. I was looking at my cell phone, pretending like, hey, like I'm actually talking to someone because no one's talking to me. I'm sure there's always those in the room. But then, the more events I went to, I built up that skill where, you catch that person's eye and then you start the convo. And then as far as throwing an event goes, I would say start small, just start. Starting, that's the biggest I was thinking yesterday actually about like my philosophy. And my philosophy is show up, just start. And if you just start, then you'll get past 80% of people, and then to make it to that top 90%, you've got to put in, that next level of work. But just by starting, I think you'll, starting small and letting yourself screw up. So my first event, I wanted to put on like a huge stadium of an event with like the president and, Obama and Jay-Z and like everybody. and then this, and also asking for advice is one of the best pieces of advice I've actually gotten from people is, ask for money, you'll get advice. Ask for advice, you'll get money. So I went to all these event people who threw events, and I said, hey, I'm thinking of putting together an event. Like if somebody went to me, after the interview or wherever, always happy to help, give them tips because that's what I did. And they gave me these tips. And basically, it ended up, saving me a whole bunch of time. One of the guys was like, Vlad, you're making this whole thing the Super Bowl. Like just invite 20 of your friends and order a box of pizza. And that's what I'll leave it with, I guess. Invite your closest friends, your 10, 20 closest friends, tell them to do the same and invite a box of pizza. And that's how we started. And now we have 3,000 members, and our next events, all angel investor panel and all that,
That's amazing. That is great advice too. And definitely I would totally agree. It's my, very similar philosophy. Just start. You'll beat everybody else if you just start. Because I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, I forget when Facebook Live came out, but I was like, well, I haven't done a ton of video, but I'm like, well, I'll just start. If I look like an idiot for a while, I'll still be better than everybody else because nobody else is doing it.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. It's so easy to criticize, but the people that actually do it and they're in the field, they're less likely to because they know the effort it takes to just get there.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, fantastic. This has been awesome, Vlad. How can people connect with you if they want to hook up and work with you or just pick your brain and get good advice like you shared here today?
Thank you very much. Yeah, so Vlad at logicinbound.com. That's my website. or Vlad Mkrtumyan. They can find me on Facebook. So yeah, vlad@logicinbound.com is the easiest way. And or Facebook, or LinkedIn, whatever they want.
Cool. All right. Well, I appreciate you being on with us today. Thanks so much for the time and the good advice, Vlad. I appreciate it.
An honor. Yeah, definitely happy to connect.